Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast. And today we're going to explore the future of manufacturing and the cutting-edge technologies that are shaping the industry, because we're diving straight into the world of automated data management solutions and their growing significance in keeping small and mid-sized manufacturers competitive. Because as technology evolves and automation becomes more prevalent, it's essential to find ways to connect legacy systems that may not have been designed to work together. And my special guest today is Jonathan Kaplan, and I'm excited to have him with us. He is the Chief Operating Officer for the Americas at Magic Software. He's going to be sharing his insights on how Industry 4.0 is revolutionizing manufacturing. And we're going to explore a few key topics today, such as systems data integration and the challenges of connecting various ERPs, the process of software implementation for a smoother transition, how increased efficiency and elimination of manual data collection can actually benefit operations, and also the importance of breaking down data silos and organisational silos for a more connected and streamlined organisation, not to mention the crucial role of finally connecting the factory floor to the C-suite to drive better decision-making, data-driven decision-making. So buckle up and hold on tight, because no matter where you're listening in the world, it's time for me to beam your ears all the way to California, where Jonathan is waiting to share his story and uncover the potential of Industry 4.0 for manufacturers of all sizes. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Jonathan Kaplan, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Magic Software Americas. So when I run the U.S. operations for Magic Software, which means I oversee 3 product lines related to integration, mobile software, and most recently I'm spending a lot of my time on manufacturing and manufacturing automation, because that's a very exciting space right now that we're spending time on. And my role was to really, guide the team. I think of myself as the one who supports the team from, keeps everything running well so that they can go and do their magic.
Awesome. And there's so much I'm looking forward to talking with you about today. But before we find out more about Magic Software, I want to take you back in time for a moment and find out more about how you got to your current role. So can I ask that you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, or just a moment that probably put you on the path that you're on today?
That's a great question. I've always been very interested in technology, but I would say my feeling about it shifted very strongly around 2004, 2005. I was working at Sun Microsystems, and my background had been, very much on servers and the kind of deep underlying parts of technology. And I changed roles into more of a research role. And the group that I was put into was led by a woman named Nicole Yanklevich, and she was very focused on how people use technology. So looking at the intersection of people and how technology affected people. And she had assembled a group of people from very diverse backgrounds. There were technology people like me, but there were also people who had backgrounds in things like anthropology, all kinds of security, privacy, all kinds of things. And so she really took a holistic view of technology and what it means. And our group at that time was actually studying what at the time was a kind of a new idea, which was remote work. And we had a program at Sun to let people work at home. And we were looking at the tools and technologies that could help them be successful. And looking back, I think a lot of the things that we were working on back then are extremely relevant now. And it's been very interesting to see how things have evolved. We actually, even about 15 years ago, built a full metaverse project called Open Wonderland, where people could have avatars and could interact in a 3D space. So we were thinking about those ideas a while ago. And so seeing those kind of technologies come back to the forefront has certainly been an interesting experience.
Yeah, it feels like you were well ahead of your time now. And you're the lady that brought you into this as well, because, remote working, metaverse, and diversity of thought. These weren't things back in 2004, 2005. So she must have been incredibly ahead of her time.
Yeah, it was a great group to work in, and it really taught me. I think my path shifted very much from focusing on technology for the sake of technology to really looking at technology for the sake of people, and that's been kind of how I've approached technology ever since.
And of course, that path would eventually lead you to Magic Software, where you are now. And I'm conscious there'll be people listening hearing about it for the first time. So can you tell me a little bit more about the story behind the company and some of the problems that you set out to solve with technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So Magic Software has been a leader in the low-code application space actually for a very long time. The company is about 40 years old, and started with a product that is now called Magic XPA, which is a low-code application development platform. And that is something that, has been around for a very long time. Since then, the company has diversified into a number of different areas, including integration software. I think that's our main kind of flagship area. And so that's working on how we connect different systems in the enterprise. I actually came into Magic by way of a startup that I had founded called PowWow Mobile, which was focused on mobility, and a product called Smart UX that helps enterprises with their mobile applications. And then, as I mentioned, more recently, we've been focused on a new product called Factory Eye. And Factory Eye is really about automating the tasks that happen in manufacturing. And again, from my point of view, it's very interesting because I really think about the people aspect, right? That's the part that's interesting to me. And when you look at manufacturing is very much a people business. And so how can you make the people who are working in a manufacturing facility as efficient and as effective as possible?
And of course, many people listening will have heard about the buzzword of Industry 4.0, but just to set the scene for our conversation today, can you expand on exactly what it is and essentially what it means for manufacturers?
Yeah, absolutely. So to talk about Industry 4.0, you have to go all the way back to Industry 1.0. And manufacturing is one of the amazing industries that's been around for long enough that you can actually trace the history back. So manufacturing 1.0 goes back to the 1780s. And that's, massive changes to manufacturing with things like the invention of the steam loom. Industry 2.0 was about electricity and about assembly lines and what we think of as kind of the modern, the more modern underpinnings of manufacturing. Industry 3.0, which dates to the late 1960s, was about bringing early information technology, so sensors, all kinds of computer systems into manufacturing. And then starting really around the mid-2000s, you had this idea of Industry 4.0. And Industry 4.0 is about shifting from a place where information is something that is scarce within a manufacturing organization to information being something that is plentiful, right? We now have in an average manufacturing facility, you have thousands of sensors, right? You have all kinds of information coming from all kinds of different systems. And so now we're dealing with not the problem of how can we get our information. The information's all there. For the most part, it's been digitized. It's really about how do we make use of that information? How do we apply that information? So how do we use things like AI and machine learning to help us make better decisions? How do we do real-time monitoring so that we can be as efficient and effective as possible?
And for business leaders listening, wanting to leverage this trend or get involved in it and know they need to make changes, they've got all the sensors, etc. Where should a manufacturer begin when exploring systems data integrations? Because that's the bit that can often feel overwhelming, right?
Yeah, I think, it's important to understand that you've got all this data, and it's important to look at what your business needs are in terms of making use of it. How can you make it as effective as possible? So I think, historically, this has been something that big manufacturing organizations have had access to. So they've been able to go through and do projects where they really unify all of the data, bring it into one system or a set of systems that they can really make use of and use that to really boost their efficiency. But our target's a little bit different, right? We tend to target the mid-sized manufacturers. And those mid-sized manufacturers, as I said, often have the data, but haven't really been making good use of it. And so where, this became to the forefront when we started seeing a lot of disruptions in supply chains over the last few years due to COVID. And so that was one factor that made people really look at their data to say, hey, this really caused an unusual disruption to our business. How can we work around that? And what they found is that it wasn't that they were missing the data. It was that they found that they didn't really have a way to use the data. And so I think the first thing to do when you're trying to approach this concept is to think about what are all the systems you have? What is all the data you're collecting? Think of all of those as the inputs, and then think about the outputs in terms of what would make a difference if you could get it out of that data. Because usually, again, it's too much data, not too little data.
And it's so refreshing to hear that. So before even thinking about the technology or software implementation, it's all about beginning with identifying the problem, the goals, and what you want to achieve first, right?
That's exactly right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Exactly. It's about making sure you know what it is you want to get out of this process. So, when I think about that, I think about, you think about an analogy, think about it like a clock, right? You want to know what time it is. And often people will tell you in the technology world, people will try to tell you how to make a clock, but that's not what you want, right? You really want to know what time it is. And so what we think about when we're thinking about these implementations is you think about the results you want, and you think about how can you put that into a small time box period of time where you're going to implement software, you're going to make a change, and you're going to test that change. And we think about that concept of sprints, right? And this comes from the software development world, where you work in a series of sprints over and over. Each one has a small but measurable impact. And that way you're really focused on what is the goal of each time period and how can you get there, as quickly with as few distractions as possible. And so typically, instead of, where often these kind of software implementations can take years, right? We're really focused on like a 3-month increment. What can you improve in 3 months? What can you measure? Make sure that at the end of the 3 months, you're doing better than you were at the start, and then you move on to the next 3 months.
And as you said, it can take years to implement absolutely everything. But on that journey, when you're looking at the problems that you identify and solving them and achieving your goals, does this eventually lead to increased efficiency and dare I say, the elimination of manual data collection? How far away would they be from that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the goals. I think often elimination of manual data entry is a huge goal, we certainly have a lot of customer success stories where that's what they've achieved. And I think of that as very much just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You move from having the data on paper sitting in filing cabinets to having the data in your computer systems, right? But often when we come into manufacturers, they have the data, and just like it was gathering dust in the filing cabinets, now it's gathering virtual dust on hard drives somewhere. And so really, to get to that increased efficiency, it's not just about manual data collection, right? It's about moving beyond that into how do you use the data? How do you turn that data into actionable insights, right? Again, going back to my theme of the people, right? How do people actually use that data to make the right decisions? And so for me, the increased efficiency really comes from having the data, having it in a place where you can use it and analyze it in consistent ways across the whole organization to make sure you're meeting your goals.
100% with you there, especially around data gathering dust on hard drives and people not know what data is where. And of course, another huge problem in just about any organization, not just manufacturing, is data silos. So doing things right, can we get to that elimination of data silos too? Have you got any examples of people you're working with? Because I think that's where the value is, isn't it? When you know where all the data is and then begin bringing it all together. How challenging has that been for some of your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a big, I think the data silos really are one of the fundamental problems. And we think about, we talk about data silos, but really there are different kinds of silos, right? There's true data silos where you have systems that don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
But there's also organizational silos, right? You have people who don't talk to each other. You have groups that don't talk to each other. And so for us, that is a big part of what we start with, is we start with this concept of data lake, which is not a new concept, but it's one that is definitely newer in its applications to manufacturing. And the idea of a data lake is that you can take all of your data from all of your different systems and you can bring it into a single unified cloud system where you can report on it, you can take action on it, and those reports are relevant to everybody in the organization. And so you start seeing sharing across the organization. Normally, when you have data and people silos. You have people in their individual systems, and they're used to the reports they get from their systems, and they often don't share. Once you bring your data into a data lake, and we see this with a lot of our customers, once they bring that data to the data lake, suddenly you get a lot more of that sharing, because everybody can see the same reports, the same data, the same goals, the same metrics, and they can put them all in one place and really work together on them.
And I think every business at the moment as well, all around the world, are all trying to do more with less. We are in a period of economic uncertainty. There's like a global conflict, etc. as well. And as a result, every tech project is now not just getting rubber stamped. It needs to be, it needs to show what the ROI it will offer, what business value will it generate. So my question to you is, what is the real value in real-time machine and operations visibility and connecting the factory floor to the C-suite? What is the real value there for businesses?
Yeah, I think that's a huge value statement and a huge change to how people do business. When we think about, people talk about connecting the factory floor to the C-suite, right? But I really think about it as connecting the factory floor to the C-suite and everything in between. That means every step of your operations, right? Whether it's the manufacturing, whether it's quality control, whether it's finance, whether it's the executives, everybody's looking at the same set of data. And when you get to that point, you really can start to think about your whole company having the same kind of goals and everybody being able to understand how they're contributing to those company-wide goals. And that's a big difference from an organizational point of view. And so when you talk about the real value, to me, a lot of the real value is in that organizational metrics, right? Really turning your whole organization from one that is based on a bunch of people making individual decisions to one where everybody is making decisions based on the same kind of common view and the common criteria. And that's really important for, as you talk about in a resource constrained world, in a world where we have more, we have a lot of technology, but we don't necessarily have the people to use that technology effectively. Making sure that everybody is on the same page, people aren't working at different purposes, that becomes even more important. The other key area there in manufacturing specifically, there's this concept what people call the silver tsunami. There's a huge wave of retirements. And so a lot of what has been the organizational knowledge is being lost as people leave. And so finding ways to capture that, to capture that organizational knowledge that's been built up over years, bring that into the systems and the way the company works is really important. So that way, as you have these transitions to a newer, younger workforce, they don't lose the benefits of all those years of knowledge.
And a few of the things that you're known for at Magic Software is faster integration, data intelligence, digital transformation of the spaces we're talking about today. And I'm curious, if you were to take all the conversations that you're having with your customers at the moment, are there any trends in the kind of things that they're coming and asking for your help with? And how is that, is that helping towards everything that you're focusing on this year? And I appreciate it's probably not too much you can share, but is there anything you can share about what your big focus is this year and how you're helping your customers?
Yeah, I think that the focus beyond just manufacturing, but I think the manufacturing is in some ways leading the way.
Yeah,
is our big theme is this idea of actionable insights, right? How do you take what is the data that everybody's collecting and turn that into action? And we think about that across all kinds of products and all kinds of use cases. So, for example, if you were shifting from a place where you have to look up reports every day to the point where you have a mobile app that gives you push notifications when there's a problem, that's an idea of shifting to a more actionable insight, right? It's not just that you have the data and you have to choose to look at it, you have to choose to interpret it. The system is telling you, hey, here's something that needs attention. And so as everybody is dealing with fewer resources, having systems play a bigger role in deciding where your attention should be focused is important. And obviously behind the scenes, a lot of our technologies play into that, right? Integration is a huge part. You need to have that data from all the different systems so that you're not getting a lot of false alarms. You're not getting a lot of, missed data between different systems. You need to apply AI and machine learning to be able to look at that stream of data and pick out what the most interesting things are. And then you have to take into account the human piece. How do you actually get that data to people? Even if the system knows somewhere to be paying attention, how do you make sure the right people are paying attention? And so we've got all kinds of interesting projects with different ways to look at the data using, old technologies, using desktops, using phones, using augmented reality, all kinds of things that are just ways to take that data and bring it out into the real world.
And I think it's so challenging for businesses at the moment because what was true a few months ago is no longer true now. It often renders a lot of projects that are just starting to kick off even irrelevant in some cases. For example, 6 months ago, the C-suite, for the most part, I would imagine, had no idea what generative AI was. It was before ChatGPT landed on the scene, and there is this real pressure on everyone to be in a state of continuous learning. So I'd love to ask you, how or where do you self-educate to stay ahead of these trends?
Yeah, I fall back as an engineer. I'm very much about, very much about doing things, very much about being hands-on. I like to read about things, and you can read about ChatGPT and how interesting it is, but I'm very much one who likes to go and find it and play with it. And so go and load up ChatGPT. Actually, I was using it to generate Mad Libs for my kids the other day. And it was like the best Mad Libs you've ever done because it can use all the context. So going and finding opportunities to go and play with the different technologies, whether it's, for sensors, when we started out on the factory sensor project, we actually built a little mini factory. It wasn't any actual machines, but we found some pieces around the house that rotated. We found a bunch of sensors, and we actually went through and built a little mini factory and started hooking up the sensors and started figuring out what kind of insights we could get from that. So whenever there's a new technology, that's always the first thing I try and do, is find a way to get my hands on it and start playing with it, because you don't really understand it just from reading about it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you all the way on that. That's exactly the kind of thing I do as well, always playing with this stuff. And before I let you go, though, for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more details about Magic Software, maybe they want to dig a little bit deeper on some of the issues we discussed today and how you're helping the manufacturing industry, what's the best starting point for everything? And then equally, how do they contact your team?
Yeah, so the best place to get in touch with us is through our website, which is either magicsoftware.com, or if you're specifically interested in manufacturing, then you can look up Factory I, Factory UIE, and those will take you to all the best information, as well as lots of ways to contact us anywhere around the world.
Well, so much we talked about today, such as increasing efficiency and the elimination of manual data collection, reaching that dream of eliminating data silos and organisational silos, and connecting the factory floor to the C-suite and the value around that. But at the heart of it all, put the technology to one side for a moment, it's about the goals. What do you want to achieve? What problems are you solving? Absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of the Tech Talks Daily podcast. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our special guest, Jonathan Kaplan, the COO from Magic Software, for providing such valuable insights into the world of Industry 4.0 and the impact on small and mid-sized manufacturers. And I hope in some small way you've been able to gain a better understanding of the importance of systems data integration, increased efficiency, the elimination of data silos, and finally, connecting that factory floor to the C-suite in today's increasingly competitive manufacturing landscape. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate and review the podcast to help us beat those algorithms. And please don't forget to share it with your colleagues and friends if you think they would find it useful too. But that's it for today. I'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning, and we'll continue to explore the future of every industry and the innovative technologies that are transforming it. So keep pushing the boundaries and striving for excellence in your operations. And until next time, don't be a stranger.